You're listening to the Time to Level Up podcast. I'm your host, business life coach Andrea Liebross. I help women in business commit to their own growth personally and professionally. Each week, I'll bring you strategies to help you think clearly, gain confidence, make your time productive, turn every obstacle into an opportunity, and finally overcome the overwhelm so that you can make money and manage life. Let's create a plan so you have a profitable business, successful career, and best of all, live with unapologetic ambition. Are you ready to drop the drama and figure out the how in order to reach your goals? You're in the right place. It's time to level up. Let's do this. Hey, Time to Level Up listeners, welcome back to the podcast. So, as we come to the end of the year, it's often time for us to reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well, and what we would do differently next year. And this then often leads into us thinking about our habits. And habits that we've formed, habits that we haven't formed, and habits that we hoped to form, but maybe didn't. So in working with my clients in Committed to Growth, I've noticed that some of my clients continue to struggle to create habits in certain areas of their life, not all areas. And I even created a habit tracker for them, which explores the concept of having a minimum baseline for your habits. And if you want to go download that, you can do that at andrealiebross.com/habits with an S. Hopefully that will help you. But in thinking about my students and clients, they have made great progress in some areas of their life and in their business or in their professional life, right? So whether that's a habit they want to create around exercise or sleep, or it's a habit they want to create about setting an agenda for a meeting, or a habit about meeting with certain people on a weekly basis, whatever it is, sometimes they're successful in certain areas, but not in other areas. So is it them? Is it the area of struggle? And is what they're trying to do unreasonable? Is there hope? Right? These are all questions that we ask. So, like any good student, I went to the Googles and looked up exactly what is a habit and how do we define a habit. And I want you, before I share these definitions with you, I want you to think about what are some of your habits? And get more specific. What are 3 habits that you want to keep? 3 habits that you want to get rid of? And 3 habits that you want to form. 3 habits you want to keep, 3 habits you want to get rid of, and 3 habits you want to form. Think about that. Especially the ones that we want to get rid of, because not doing something can be just as much of a habit as doing it. And when I looked up habit in the dictionary via Google, here's what it said. A habit, a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. So think about that, especially one that's hard to give up. So not doing something, for example, not exercising 3 times a week, that's hard to give up. It's hard to change that. Then I Googled, how do you create a habit? And what came up first was this. I thought it was super interesting. The best way to form a new habit is to tie it to an existing habit, experts say. Look for patterns in your day and think about how you can use existing habits to create new positive ones. For many of us, our morning routine is our strongest routine. So that's a great place to stack on a new habit. Okay, so that's what came up when I first Googled how to create a habit. So basically, they're saying tie it to an existing habit. You know what? And I can't disagree. I think that's a great idea. And it works sometimes, but it doesn't always work and it doesn't always stick. So I thought about this. Why is that? Why is that? Well, I think because they're referring to a habit as something, in order to form it, you have to do something. Okay, you have to take action on the creating of it. But I would disagree in the sense that I think this little blurb still doesn't really get to the issue of why it's hard to create habits. Okay? So I went to my number one tool that I like to use to help me solve problems and figure out the why. I went to using the model. And if you don't know what the model is yet, I encourage you to download my podcast roadmap, andrealiebross.com/podcast-roadmap, and listen to the episodes about the model. It's something you need to know about. Anyway, using the model, if I want my result line to be habit X was formed, for example, work out 3 times a week, I know that the result line in any model is always evidence of our thoughts. So even though we all know we have to do it, like we have to work out 3 times a week for multiple weeks in order to create the habit, this kind of thinking, still just focusing on that action line, still doesn't answer the question of why it's so hard or why sometimes we can't consistently keep the habit. Why do we struggle? Why do we have to continuously revisit trying to create habits? So we have to look at what is driving our actions. And that, my friends, what drives your actions are your feelings, which are all tied to your thoughts. So here's the thing. I know, because you guys are all smart, ambitious women, that you all have plans or have planned to create a habit. The problem is that we don't always follow the plan, right? The problem is not that you don't want it to happen or you don't desire the outcome of working out 3 times a week. You don't desire the outcome. It's not that you don't desire the outcome of creating the habit. You really want it badly, or else we wouldn't even be thinking about it. And even ask yourself, like, how long have you been wanting it? Probably a long time. And if you've not been able to do it, you might say to me, I continuously fail. I'm not doing it. What's wrong with me? Which then leaves you feeling incompetent. So look at your list of the 3 habits that you want to form. I'm going to guess that you didn't just come up with those and pull them out of thin air today. They're things you've thought about in the past. And maybe you've even tried it and it hasn't worked and you've failed, which has left you feeling incompetent. So I want to propose this. What if instead you could trust yourself to make it happen? Trust yourself to take the actions needed so that it would become a habit and you would get the result you want. What if instead of throwing the plan in the drawer, you could follow the plan with ease? What if it could be easy, simple, doable, and fun? What if you knew that you could do it and feel good actually doing it, and that wouldn't feel like such a burden? And what if you had the confidence in yourself? This is kind of like the trust in yourself that you would make smart, strategic, brilliant decisions and choices that would ensure that you actually took the actions and got the results you wanted? What if? So Here is the real problem. The real problem is that you're focusing on the action and you're not focusing on the thoughts and feelings that drive the action. And that is what this model is all about, okay? What's missing, what you need is a reliable tool to help you figure this all out. That's what you need. You don't have a tool to pull out of your toolbox to help you figure out why something is or isn't happening, or why you feel the way you feel or don't feel the way you feel, or why you're consistently creating a weekly agenda and why you're not. Okay? And this tool that I love to use is the model. I know some people like Brenda Lomelli refers to it as the Think, Feel, and Act formula. That's a version of the model. There's lots of versions of this model out there. But inside Committed to Growth, my group coaching program, we meet weekly, and I work with my students in there to help them master using this model or formula. We actually, in there, sometimes we have model-thons. I know. Sounds super fun, doesn't it? But that's where we run all sorts of problems, all the things that are not creating the habits, all the struggles and the challenges. We run all of those through a model. And those CTGers, I call them CTGers, they're Committed to Growth for short. That's short for Committed to Growth. They get really good at running things through the model. Okay? They get results. If they can see it clearly by running things through a model, they get the results that they want because they figure out what needs to change. So, side note, you're welcome to join us inside Committed to Growth. I think just becoming a master at the model is worth the price tag alone. And if you are interested in doing that, you can go to andrealiebross.com/schedule and we will get you started. But anyway, today I wanted to share with you some key principles that you need in order to create a habit. Okay? Now, you have to know and believe before I even start that in order to create any change in your life or your business, you need to know these 5 key principles. Okay, here we go. Number 1, in order to create change, any behavior, you must change the way you think and feel, not change necessarily your action. Okay, so if we change the way we think and feel, we're automatically going to know whether or not the action we have been taking is useful or not, or we'll automatically change our action so it becomes useful, or maybe we'll change the consistency of our actions and get the result we want. But we don't need to worry about the action. We need to change the way we think and feel first. Too often, we just look to what we need to do as the solution. Like when I started and I told you about when I Googled and what came up was attach the habit to the other habit. They're just focusing on the action. Okay. Now, Brenda Lomelli uses this analogy and I think it's brilliant and it's something that I've really taken to heart. I want you to picture an iceberg. Okay. Picture the Titanic. Okay. Picture an iceberg and picture the part that's sticking out of the water. Okay. That is only like the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a huge portion of that iceberg underneath the water. So picture that underneath part. Underneath the water are your thoughts and feelings. And the tip that's peeking out, that's the action. Okay? We can only sometimes see the actions. We can't necessarily see our thoughts and feelings. So we forget about them. But without considering what's underneath that action-packed tip, we might sink. If we don't have the thoughts and feelings there to support the tip of the iceberg that's sticking out, we have no action. And this is what happens when we sabotage ourselves. People say, I keep sabotaging myself. Why? Why is because we're only focusing on the tip of the iceberg. We are not focusing on what's supporting those actions, which are thoughts and feelings, or what's driving that tip up out of the surface of the water. Action is always driven from what is below. Okay? Or action has to be created. All right, so that was number 1. You have to change the way you think and feel, not necessarily change the action. Key principle. Next one, number 2. Feelings are what drive your actions. Okay, and I'm going to tell you a little story. This happened yesterday. So my son is looking for summer internships, and he is a finance and business and accounting major, and he's only a sophomore. So getting these sophomore summer internships is challenging. And he's put out a few applications. He's gotten a few no's. He's gotten a few, we're still thinking about it. And we were having a conversation yesterday about it. And I said, listen, Brett, now's the time to leverage your network of people. So we started brainstorming. And then it occurred to me that really he should be leveraging the network of people that he is connected with through his high school alumni association. Why not, right? Why not? And so when I said to him, why not? All he could come up with was, I just don't like cold calling people, or I don't know, they may not help me, or I may not even get an answer. He had no good reason. To my why not. Okay? So what I said to him, I said, well, it seems to me the only reason that you're not taking that action is because you don't want to feel a certain way. And then I paused. I said, you don't want to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to feel awkward. You don't want to feel stressed. You don't want to add more to your plate by searching through the alumni directory. And he kind of looked at me and he said, he was on FaceTime. Okay, Mom, you're right. So our feelings drive our actions, okay? We want to feel calm and confident and smart. Feelings we don't want, where we resist, are those feelings of stress and overwhelm and being bored and uncomfortable, okay? So why we do something or don't do something, or why we create a habit or don't create a habit, has a lot to do with how we are feeling. And we're really good at distracting ourselves or at buffering when we have the red lights flashing ahead of us, danger, danger, coming. Okay, that discomfort is coming. The flashers go off and we start to buffer. Okay, and then I have a whole episode on buffering. I think it is episode number, what is it? Maybe it's episode number 46. Yes, episode number 46. Okay. So this kind of brings me to my third principle, that really everything is neutral until you have a thought about it, because your thoughts create your feelings. All right. So his thoughts about reaching out to these people, they're all really neutral. Okay. Reaching out to the people is neutral until he had a thought about it. All right. And that thought was creating feelings he didn't want. But we think that the situation is creating the feeling. We might think having a to-do list, the to-do list is creating the anxiety. No, that's not it. It's what you think about the to-do list, or it's what you think about the reaching out. We may think that creating content every day or meeting weekly with someone, that's what's causing the stress. No, that's not what's causing the stress. It's your thought about the creating or about the meeting. Everything is really neutral until you have a thought about it. Okay? All right. Brings me to number 4, because all thoughts are optional. You can think and feel however you want. I'm going to repeat that. You can think and feel however you want. Okay? Because every thought is optional. Right? It's like the tray of hors d'oeuvres at the wedding that the waiter carries around past hors d'oeuvres and he says, take one. That tray is like a tray of thoughts. You've got options. Right? So I want you to think about if you were to trust yourself and have confidence that you would make the right decisions that would create the habit, you kind of be leveling up, right? You kind of be like bossing up, leveling up, all right? And you would maybe adopt the thought that I am the boss of what I think. I am in charge. My actions and my feelings and thoughts are what create my own results. I have ownership. I'm responsible. Okay, I am responsible for my results because all of my thoughts are 100% optional. That was number 4. All right, and here's the last one. Manage your thoughts and feelings, which means managing your mind, so that you don't need to use an ineffective coping tool like a buffer. Go listen to episode 46 if you haven't listened to it. Okay? You will have to use an ineffective tool unless you use a more effective tool like the model. Okay, so let me rephrase that. By using an effective tool to problem solve, to figure out how to get the result you want, how to create the thoughts you need that are useful, you've got that as an option. Okay, if you do that, I will guarantee you'll create some habits that you want to keep. If you don't do that and you use an ineffective tool like emptying the dishwasher, drinking, eating, watching Netflix, okay, you will not create the habit you're looking for. All right, so what you need to be able to do is to be able to just plug in your current result or your current action or your current feeling into a formula or a model so that you can diagnose where the problem is. It's probably not in your action that you're planning. It's probably in your thought. So this is kind of like going to the doctor. Okay? When you go to the doctor, if you're a good patient, you tell them what's happening. Okay? What your symptoms are. And then he plugs those symptoms into his formula in her brain and spits out and tells you what's wrong. Okay, what is wrong? You may go in there thinking what's wrong is you have an ear infection, but you may walk out finding out what's wrong was really that you had strep throat. Okay, so he takes the data, which are your current thoughts, feelings, actions, and results, plugs it into his formula, and spits out the diagnosis. All right, so think about you need to be able, principle number 5 is that you've got to be able to use an effective tool, not an ineffective one, in order to create the result you want. What we do in Committed to Growth is we become masters of the model, okay? My students are able to identify what they're feeling and why they're feeling it and what they want to feel. And we can identify why they have the results they have. We can identify why they're making the choices that they're making, okay? And then we work on choosing if we want to keep them or not. We work on choosing how we want to feel, what we want to do, and what the result we want should be. And then we get to plug in, this is kind of like plug and play, what you want to create instead of what you're currently creating. So if this habit is not formed, I have good news. You can use a tool in order to create the result you want. It is that simple. And by doing this work, think about this. We're taking care of our own brain health, which is our mindset. We're taking care of our own emotional health, kind of emotional self-care, and we're training ourselves to be better at whatever our brain is not so good at right now, like creating habits. So as we approach the end of the year and look ahead, think about this. Like a lot of us have, hire a trainer on our list of things that we want to do for 2022. Okay? Hire a personal trainer to get our physical health in a different place. I want you to really think about who you're hiring or what resources or support you're giving yourself in making better choices, in working on your brain health and your emotional health. It is just as important. Okay? And when you can manage your mental and emotional health, when you get that kind of flexibility, mental and emotional flexibility, just like your body, if being flexible is a good thing, if you've got flexibility and can move in certain ways, you can really create any result you want in the world. So in Committed to Growth, we create an awareness of what works and doesn't for you so that you can change it. And when you manage your brain and your thinking with these kinds of tools, you can create anything. Anything. This week, I asked my students, what did they create? Someone said they created a peaceful, calm afternoon with their family. Someone said they created a week where they made more money than any week they've ever made before. More money than in 1 week than they've ever made before. Someone else said they created a week where they took care of themselves and ate and exercised and slept. Someone else said that they created a new opportunity for themselves in terms of jobs. Someone else, they managed their mind and they created a stronger friendship. So when you become the boss of your own brain, you can create your own habits that work for you. This is a brand new skill set for a lot of you, and you're not going to be perfect at it right away. So give yourself a little grace. And why not get the support you need to become a master at these types of skills? This is brain health. This is emotional health. This is just as important as physical health. So I hope you found that helpful. You can always go to show notes or go to andrealiebross.com/habits to download that habit tracker. But that really honestly is tracking more of your actions. The thinking is a whole other ballgame. It's a whole other ballgame. And I would be happy to chat with you about it, about how we actually do that. So just reach out. You can direct message me. You can schedule a call, andrealiebross.com/schedule, and we can chat. And here's something else that I would ask you. If you're listening to this episode and you think that this would be helpful for someone you know, will you please share it on social and tag me? Because that's the way that we can help the world. That is one way we can help the world and add value to the world. Share the good things in your life. I would so appreciate it. Okay, my friends, until next week, remember, this is a great way to level up. This is a great way to upgrade your life and your business. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Time to Level Up podcast with me, your host, Andrea Liebross. If you know someone who could benefit from listening to this episode, I encourage you to take a screenshot and share it with them. Okay, now what about you? You've listened to the podcast, and if you now know that you're ready to upgrade your life, upgrade your business, upgrade you, then stop being only a listener and start being a liver, living that upgraded life. Head over to my website and schedule a call. Right there on that call, we'll start changing the way you think and act so that you can have the freedom to achieve the impossible in life and business and have the resources to do it. You deserve an upgrade. Let's do it.